I wish I had a comeback for illustrious, but I don't, so here I am. So, let me get my paper out.
Might help.
You always help, Jim.
Yeah.
Actually, Jim does help me. More than a lot of people know. In our discussions, I go, good point, Jim. And it's convicting even to myself. So here, I just want to share a statistic from a national study that was performed by the CDC. And it was basically trying to find out how many people suffered from a traumatic event or was exposed to a traumatic event. 89.7% of the population has had a traumatic event in their lives or has been exposed to a traumatic event. We hear about it in our prayer time. We heard about it this morning. We heard it twice this morning. It happens to people. It happens to all of us. It happens to each and every one of us. The world would say, oh my, that's a terrible thing. We would say as Christians, yeah, it happens. We live in a sinful world. It's the way it is. And there's only one place to get grace and peace, and that's through our Savior, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
So, Paul wrote to the Colossians. He said in verses 13 and 14, "For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins." Amen. There's many examples within the Bible about God's redemptive work. Joseph, Moses, Paul, fallen souls that could have only been redeemed through God's grace. This grace is not only in the Bible. This grace is here, in this church, in this building today, in every church across this country, in every church across this world. This grace is there today. And what we're going to share today is just one of the millions and millions of stories that are out there on how one person was rescued from the dominion of darkness and finally accepted the free gift of forgiveness from our Lord Jesus Christ. So we share this today to give God the glory.
Amen.
Because on our own and on our own power, we could never, ever have come to a place of redemption that can only be found in Jesus. So here's the setup. Jim was born in 1961, oldest of 5 children, 4 boys and a girl. He grew and blossomed in a large extended family. Jim was raised as a Catholic by hardworking parents. His dad worked, his mom stayed at home. Jim attended Catholic school. He was a normal kid, enjoyed sports, and excelled in school. By all accounts, he was a very happy young boy. When he was 8 years old, Jim entered the dark realm of evil. He was molested and abused, not by his family, but by other authorities in his life. This abuse continued until he was 12 years old. In his pain and shame, there was no place for him to turn. At 13, he found alcohol. Alcohol deadened the pain. He drank as often as he could. During this time, his personality went from a cheerful young boy to someone who felt he couldn't trust anyone. At 18, he found better ways to deaden the pain and to escape the loneliness. He started using pot and cocaine. At this point, he was no longer able to trust anyone. And by the time he was 21, he was a full-blown alcohol and drug addict. During the 1980s, he saw a continuing downward spiral: drugs, alcohol, robbery, DUIs, felony convictions, and jail. He was sentenced to a 20-year term, but only did 2. He was released from jail to keep him safe. That was the first miracle in Jim's life. During this time, Jim prayed to God. He knew God was there somewhere, But through his pain, isolation, and selfishness, he was unable to learn how to hear God. He stopped using cocaine but increased his alcoholism. 3 DUIs within 6 months during 2001. The next 10 years were utter chaos. He was miserable. He was a victim. He became his own best abuser. In pain that couldn't be numbed any further. No trust, no friends. 0 healthy relationships. Isolated, angry, selfish. To the point of being abusive to others. He tried everything he could to think of to feel better. NA, AA, jobs, sports, gambling, alcohol, nothing worked. So finally, in 2010, Tom Branson asked Jim to come talk with Pastor Rod. And it was here he finally truly heard about the grace and peace only Jesus Christ can provide.
Amen.
It's up to you, Jim.
The first service, Ted told everybody I talk a lot, and some of y'all know that. So I have to keep the script here. First thing I want to do is thank the youth group that sang the songs. And if anybody listened to those songs really moved me. And my life has a lot in those words of those songs, a lot with fear, a lot of chains and imprisonment, and then finally getting released. What happened to me as a child changed everything about me in my life until about 2.5 years ago. Actually, it was about 7 or 8 years ago when I first came here in 2009 or 10. But at the age of 12, I didn't know that what happened to me as a child had any effect on me. At 20 years old, I still had no idea the changes in me personally were so different from others emotionally. And at 35 years old, I still didn't know what the tragedy that had happened to me had changed me so drastically. So much was stolen from me. Emotionally, as a child, I developed low self-esteem. I sought out attention in all the wrong ways, and I began a series of life-changing decisions that changed everything about me. I trusted no one. And I surely didn't trust God. And at 40 years or so, I really had no idea that anything was wrong with me. I knew I had a problem with drugs and alcohol, but even that took years to admit. Trust. Remember that simple word, because to me, the absolute lack of trust almost destroyed me, but God had another plan. Over the years, I bought into the lie that the enemy held over me. I was no good. No one really wanted me. I was bad at this. I was terrible at that. There's something wrong with me. Everything is wrong with me, and on and on and on. I believed those lies until just a few months ago. I battled with all those things for all these years. Worry, thought, chaos in my head went on every day. Although I pretty much hated God, I also felt something was looking out for me all my life. And there's so much story, and I can't go into everything, but man, I was stabbed in prison. I was stabbed in D.C. buying drugs. It went on and on. A long time, the Lord has been looking out for me and kept me safe. In 2010, I came here at the request of Tom Branson. To this day, I have no explanation why I came. Over 35 years, I'd only set foot in a church maybe 5 times, and that was for weddings only, and I'm sure I was self-medicated at the time. I don't remember much that day, talking to Pastor Rob, but I do remember crying the whole time and a release of emotions and the weight off of my spirit. I left a changed man that day. I left changed. I was a little different, but nothing inside of me really changed. I still didn't trust. I didn't trust anybody. I felt better, but something still wasn't right. Eric Brown would come and pick me up from my parents' house and bring me to church every Sunday. Every Sunday. No ifs, no ands, no buts. Every Sunday, he was there. He would mentor me and guide me, and he answered all my calls, always. Every Sunday, Ted was here, and he would mention CR to me, and every Sunday I would make excuses not to come. A different one every week, or pretty much something. Inside of me, there was no way I was really going to let someone know me, so I couldn't come to CR, because then I would have to expose myself to what was really going on inside of me, and I didn't want anybody to see that. I always put up an image for everybody else. I wanted to fit in everywhere, but I never fit in inside of me anywhere. That went on for 2 years. Ted wouldn't leave me alone. Every Sunday, same thing, every Sunday. As a matter of fact, most of you in this church would always ask me how I was doing and that you were praying for me. I like that. I like that a lot. But I have to admit, I was thinking, what do these people want from me? I was conditioned that there was string attached to everything. And that came from what happened to me as a child. I was groomed by this person. And anything that he gave me or somebody gave me, they wanted something back. I've had a few physical problems along the way, and I had kidney stones and was in the hospital around 6 months after coming here. I woke up, and there was Howard Burt sitting there, out of nowhere. And I remember feeling, this is really cool. But I really wanted someone to care about me, but I wasn't worth being cared for. I liked that you all cared about me. I wanted it so bad. All my life I ever wanted was to be loved. Please, someone love me. But every time you loved me, please get away. I wasn't worth being cared about. Good things began to happen in my life. I was on fire for the Lord. Man, I really was. And I felt happy. And things were really good at many times up here. And then way down here, when I would go listen to Satan and the lies of the world and believe those things. There was kind of no in between for me. But I still felt like I didn't fit in. All my life, I wanted to fit in. Inside of me, I never could. When someone would get close to me, I would destroy it. I pushed them away, or I was isolated. You hear that theme over and over again? I would get better for a while, and it would go back to my hell. And please know that all this time, since 2009, actually even before that, there was no drugs or alcohol. My son came along. And this will go to show you that we can't do this alone. I said, I'm not going to drink or use ever again. By this boy, he changed me. And he did. But on the inside of me, he didn't change me. I was able to sustain it my way for a while, but I couldn't forever. Not anybody, especially not God, I couldn't trust. I knew he was there now, and I believed, but I still couldn't trust. I also had all these grandiose ideas that everything I could do for all of you, because I could fix all of you, believe me. You see, for me, it was all real and with completely good intentions, but I honestly was seeking attention the whole time on the outside to make me feel better on the inside. You see all this weight? I'm still carrying it. In 2011, I was given 2 to 5 years to live. Because of all my drug abuse and alcohol abuse, I had cirrhosis of the liver. I remember crying with Eric on the way home in the truck that one day. And I felt the happiness, and I couldn't understand, why did I get this far, and now I'm going to die? Well, once again, God has other intentions for me, because I'm still standing here, add up the years. The doctors are still trying to come up with some scientific way to say, while I'm still here, there is no cure for cirrhosis. It does slow down, but it cannot be cured. 10 or 20 or so blood tests, a few MRIs. I don't have cirrhosis, folks. That's a miracle of God. So along the way, there's so many people in this church that have looked out for me. You heard me say that. I just looked over at Rick Rayleigh, and he's been there for me every iota of a minute. Rick has a way of not being real soft with love, though. There's one little story I got to tell, and hopefully I won't go over time, but my ex-wife, it doesn't matter. What I was having trouble with, and I went to Rick, and Rick looked at me and he says, when are you going to stop this? And I was like, oh, this and that, and all this and that. Oh, you're not. Just go ahead back. Keep doing the same thing. And I looked at him, and he's like, he was right. What could I say? I went to the abuse, and I was an abuser also. I became abuser of myself and abuser of others with the anger that was inside of me. 2.5 years ago, along with all the people that came along the way that met me and loved me, I still was trying to love, but I couldn't accept it. I met a special lady in my life. And she had God's love, and she really, really showed me. Pastor I went to and we talked, and we thought I was ready for a relationship. This was a healthy relationship. Unfortunately, I was still holding on to that little string, that little thing. 90% trust in God. Not really. I was still in charge. And lo and behold, I drank, and I got a DWI. That was January 4th, 2015. And I had to go humbly to all my friends here in the church, and they stood up for me in that courtroom. And that was a little bit scary thing because the changes were happening inside of me. And believe me, they were, but there was still a whole lot of doubt. And I knew if those men came and spoke for me in court, you better be ready to do the right thing, because if you don't, there's butt kicking going to happen probably, because that's what Eric, you actually did tell me you were going to kick my tail if I screwed up again. But that was love. That was love. I started doing some things, but once again, I was still in control. I was coming to celebrate recovery. I was getting more honest with myself, more honest with Ted. I was working the steps. I got relief. I was. I was still doing all the work. I wasn't letting God work inside of me. I was trying to change everything. That roller coaster was still going on. I still wasn't trusting God. I didn't trust Chris, and not only this woman in my life, not only did I didn't trust anybody. So verbally, all that angle and all that stuff inside of me, everything that was going on, I was always paranoid and wondering what was happening. And so I verbally abused her. Sometimes a verbal abuse is just like a punch in the face. Actually, it can be worse. So things have gone sour in that relationship. But I felt God, and I felt the love of you all, and I wanted it so bad. And I was still caught up in Satan's lie, and the enemy's lie kept me sick and unhealthy. And I listened to that, and I believed it, but it was a lie. And in May, I hadn't worked for about 5 years because I had a back surgery, and I have 2 vertebrae removed out of my back and 4 rods in my back. And all the rest of this story, don't feel sorry for me. This is God's glory and grace. All right, but I got tired of this. And I had tasted some of this love of God, and I was tired. And I got up out of that bed, and I said, God, please, please help me. I can't take this anymore. And I went to the cross, and I laid all this crap down. And by a miracle, it started to happen. God's grace and God's glory is there. Now, you don't have to take it as hard as the way as I did it. You can do it anytime you want, from a small thing to a large hurt. You know, it took me a long, long time. But when I really went to him and I said, God, please help me, and I don't know if these were the exact words, but God, I can't do it anymore, please. I'm miserable like this. Nothing works. I've tried everything my way. Can we please just do it your way? Instantly, I felt peace. And that was back in May. Now, granted, I was saved and became a believer in Jesus Christ in 2010 or so, and things did get better, and I know they got better. Well, you want to talk about the miracles I have in my life. Like I said, I've been stabbed a couple times. I had the cirrhosis. I have this back problem. I hadn't worked in 5 years. You want to know what a miracle is? A miracle of the peace and love that came inside of me. I am a changed man. Not by Jim, not by man, but by God. I walk with Christ now. The blood of Christ was shed for me. Forgiveness. All that anger inside of me that I held on to for years from when I was molested as a child is gone. I can't explain that. It's gone. It is gone. There is freedom in forgiveness. And in that song, you sing that song, and the one part in the song, it says, you forgive, forgive, and then the next thing you know, you're the prisoner that's released. Well, I was a prisoner all my life. Ted shared at the beginning of this about Moses and David in the Bible. And I don't know if y'all remember, but the senator back when they had the vice president debates, and he said to Dan Quayle, who had referred something about John Kennedy, and the senator turned to him, "Sir, Mr. Dan Quayle, you are no John F. Kennedy." Well, I'm no Moses, I'm no David. But I'm going to tell you one thing I do know, which I haven't known all my life. I am Jim Bucci. I am a father to that young man over there now. I am a friend to Tom Weaver, who called me constantly every day when I didn't want him to anymore. The beeper would go off. "Oh, Tom, leave me alone." He loved me. He kept there. God's love. I am a child of the one true King, and I am free because of God's love.
So how do we apply that to our lives? Wow. The only thing is that we're here in the church. We're here as part of a group of people who struggle, who have pain, who have been hurt. There's someone here you can talk to if you have pain, if you have been hurt. That's what church is all about. That's what Jesus has done for us, that we can be set free. So if you need to, Pastor Rob doesn't do anything all week long. Come in and talk to him. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Actually, not so much. But if you need somebody to talk to, Pastor is actually, he is more than willing to listen. I'm willing to listen. There's people here. Jennifer's willing to listen. There's people here. And Jennifer, I am so sorry. I owe you a dinner. So I can never remember her name. So if you need something, there's people we can talk to. Anytime. So thank you, and so I'm going to pray. Do we got the Serenity Prayer up there? God,
Grant me the
serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that He will make all things right if I surrender to His will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with Him forever and the next. Amen. I want to say one more thing. You meet somebody, be available to listen to their story. Thank you.